You're watching Cover to Cover, our guide to the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read. This week we're introducing A Sea of Orange by Cynthia Mahmood. Subtitle of this book is Writings on the Sikhs and India, and this is a book that is actually a collection of 10 articles written by the author for a range of journals, brought together in one space that actually reads as a very cohesive work in its own right. This is a wonderful work that has stood the test of time from an even more wonderful author. This academic, Cynthia Mahmood, is an anthropologist by trade who has studied the Sikh people for over 25 years and is based at the University of Notre Dame. Let's take a look at what this book is all about. Cynthia Mahmood is a scholar who needs no introduction to anybody that has taken an interest into the affairs of the Punjab post-1984. Her seminal work in this area was titled Fighting for Faith and Nation. It was published in 1995 and involved interviews with militants who were fighting against the Indian state, predominantly Sikh separatists who were fighting for the foundation of Khalistan. However, what this book does is bring together a series of articles that were published in a wide range of journals by the author that cover the whole topic of why Sikhs are doing what they're doing. It is conveniently split into 3 separate sections that one can dip into and read the articles as you like, or read from start to finish. And this is an eye-opening, incredibly refreshing take on studying the Sikh people from a perspective that is both comfortable for those who are objective or politically neutral, as well as those who are looking for an academic insight, as well as Sikhs themselves who might be looking to try and better understand why the events that have transpired over the last 3 decades have done so in the Punjab region. The author is a trained anthropologist. However, even though this work was published in 2001, what you can find in reading it is insights that even to this day, almost 2 decades on, some anthropologists and academics haven't fully grasped and taken on board when they talk about not only Sikhs or people from South Asia, but any peoples that aren't from the predominant West. As I said, there are 3 main sections to this work into which the 10 differing papers are divided. There is a preface at the beginning and a bibliography to close things off. But here's what you're looking for. What are these 10 papers and what are the 3 sections? The opening section is Facing Our Dragons, Chapter 1, Why Sikhs Fight. Chapter 2, Playing the Game of Love, Passion and Martyrdom Among Khalistani Sikhs. Chapter 3, Trials by Fire, Dynamics of Terror in Punjab and Kashmir. We then have the 3rd section, Contextualizing Religious Violence, Chapter 4, Ayodhya and the Hindu Resurgence. Chapter 5, Rethinking Indian Communalism, Culture and Counterculture. Chapter 6, Hinduism in Context, Approaching a Religious Tradition Through External Sources. And then we have the closing section, the 3rd section, where we have 4 different papers. Chapter 7, Asylum, Violence and the Limits of Advocacy. Chapter 8, The Punjab Conflict, Human Rights in Context. Chapter 9, Inscribing Power, Interpreting Pain, Interrogating Politics. And Chapter 10, Writing the Bones. The bibliography is incredibly useful for somebody who is an academic in particular, but also for those who are looking for more works to read on this topical area. The 3 sections take you on a journey through first looking at how Sikhs as a community should be viewed and studied in the way that Cynthia Mahmood, along with a whole bunch of new thinking, fresh-minded academics and anthropologists have started to do in this century. The second section looks at the subcontinent as a region and why some of these fractures have emerged in the way that they have, whilst the 3rd section brings us into direct communication with the militants and of course with the whole movement of Sikhs separating from the Indian state. Each chapter closes by telling the reader where they can find the original article in the journal that it was published. There are, of course, umpteen quotes and references to further reading in the academic style. But what this book is really doing is waking you up to how you should be thinking about studying Sikhs before you start to do so, whether you are a Sikh or not. This book is a fabulous find, and I can't take credit for it. In fact, I'd never actually come across the fact that all 10 of these papers had been published in one book, in one space, in this way. This book was gifted to me by some of the students on a Sikh studies course that I teach for the Sikh Education Council. It was a very nice gift of them to give me following the culmination of the course teaching. However, the fact that they'd even brought it to my attention means that they'll always have a place in my heart, as will this book, because although I'd read a number of these papers over the years throughout the course of my own studies and research, I'd never come across one or two of them, and in particular, reading them in the order that the author presents them is eye-opening and awe-inspiring. To a great extent, what Cynthia Mahmood has done is something that the Sikh community will be thankful to her for time immemorial, and perhaps that's not necessarily understood and appreciated at this particular time. But what she has presented in her work, like some other scholars, is telling the Sikh story at a time when it's not safe to do so, and when even in academic terms it is dangerous to assert oneself in this particular discipline. This is a must-have book, I'm now saying, having not even known of its existence up until a couple of years ago. This is a must-have book for any Sikh who is interested in the affairs of the Punjab post-1984 vis-a-vis the Sikhs and the Indian state. It is a wonderful way of looking at a range of articles by this particular author on this topic and having them close to hand. But we want to know what you think, so please leave us a comment below and share your thoughts on A Sea of Orange, Writings on the Sikhs and India by Cynthia Mahmood. Join us again for another Cover to Cover on Naujawani. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out for our guide to the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read.